All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Today we're going to do a little NBA reset. We're going to talk about conference odds, Atlantic Division, Pacific Division. We'll get into the MVP race as well, which has turned significantly in the past week. But Drew, where I want to start, there's lots going on in sport at the moment. Gearing up for Super Bowl. Tom Brady just retired. NBA season heading up to the trade deadline. NHL going into All-Star break. So I want to talk to you about French soccer, which I think is the only that we can dive into. Now, Ligue 1, Drew, every year, PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, they start minus 1,000. They have 10 times more money than everyone else. They have the big three, Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. Right now, they're minus 5,000 on PointsBet, 20 games into the season. I think someone's going to get them, Drew. I think that minus 1,000 is going down. And the reason why is, so the World Cup this year being in the middle of the European football season always had the potential to throw up outliers. And the three principal actors of that World Cup, Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, they all play for PSG. And the thought was that maybe that would create a little turmoil with all the focus on that World Cup, with Messi coming down from the mountaintop, and Mbappe also the biggest stretch of his career. He's also eyeing a move to Real Madrid. Neymar has been banged up. He's still not right. And since they've come back, so the past 4 games for PSG in January, 2 losses, 1 win, and then a draw on the weekend at home to France in a game they really should have lost. They are teetering at the moment. And so if you look at the rest of the board, Lens, their second favorite right now. They're 3 points back at PSG, 20-1. I had a little dabble at 25-1 on Lens, but I don't really believe in them. They just don't have the upside. The team, Drew, Olympique Marseille, 28-1. They're 5 points back at PSG. They're the second biggest team in France. They came second last year. They were in the Champions League. They've won 9 straight matches on XG. They are surging at the moment behind Alexis Sanchez, familiar name. And Alexis Sanchez is like the best player in the Premier League at the time. Now he's leading the line for Marseille. Oh my God. And here's the thing. PSG, they don't care about Liga. They don't care about the league. They just only care about the Champions League. That is what this is all about. And they've got this month upcoming now where they're going to play Bayern Munich twice in the Champions League. They play Marseille in the Cup. They play Lille, Monaco, 2 of the best teams in Ligue 1. And then also, here's what I love. They play Marseille at the end of this turbulent month in Marseille. So Marseille are going to have a chance to claw back 3 points. And 538, which is imperfect, but I think is really makes you ask the right questions. 538 has Marseille at 9-1. And I think that's a little bit aggressive, but 28-1 is too big. I think it should be half that price. Have I talked you into Marseille?
Yeah, well, of course. All you needed to tell me was kind of remind me that Mbappe and Messi played for PSG, because you're telling me that there's going to be a little bit of an exhale from Messi in league play after what he just went through. Of course there is. Like, I had no doubt these guys only care about how they perform in the Champions League this year. And honestly, they may not even, considering how the World Cup went for those guys. So this is fascinating breakdown. Can you talk to me a little bit? What's the liquidity like in the Ligue 1 outright market? Is there a way to get a bet down on this?
There is. I mean, that's the beauty of this. European soccer outrights generally decent enough limits. So I bet Marseille at 32-1. I would bet them down to at least 15-1. I think Marseille are the play. Here's the thing, like Mbappe, Messi, they just played off in the most epic World Cup final of all time. Neymar had this heartbreaking loss to Croatia in the round 16 in the World Cup. I don't think that was it round 16 or quarterfinals? Either way, he went down to Croatia. And these guys are going to get up for like a random Wednesday night game against Angers? Like, no way. They don't care about Ligue 1. They might care about Bayern Munich, but to your point, they might not even care there. So, let's ride with Marseille. Have a little saver on Lens, because Lens are 3 points back and playing well. But Marseille is the horse.
Marseille's the horse. Okay.
Marseille's the horse.
All right. You've challenged me, man, because honestly, like, I'm not even sure where I have to go to find liquidity in this market, but I'm going to get down on this with you. Let's go. A PSG. Find your way down the table. Let's get a winner in French soccer. And I guess, this is never. I'm going to have to now learn where to watch this, what podcasts to listen to that are breaking this down. This is going to be fun for the remainder of the season. So great shout.
Yeah, it's a fun one. In a previous life, I lived in Marseille for a little stretch.
Really?
I used to go to the Stade Vélodrome, watch my boy Andre Pierre Gignac at the time. The line Gignac was he was a little kind of Luka Doncic. He never looked quite in shape, but he was a good guy to get behind. Le Tigre, and let's roll with Marseille. And thus concludes 2023's lone segment on Ligue 1, unless Marseille go on a run, in which case we'll check in with them. But speaking of Luka Doncic, Drew, he is on the periphery of the MVP race in the NBA, which had quite a dramatic moment on Saturday, where going into that game, Philadelphia-Denver, I thought Jokic was like minus 250 fair. I thought it was trending towards done. And then Joel Embiid puts up 47 and 18 and embarrasses Nikola Jokic, who has 7 turnovers, coughs up a 15-point lead towards the end of the third quarter. Embiid dunks on him. Embiid hits the step-back 3 in the face to seal the game. And since then, though, Embiid lost to Orlando in a game that we'll get into later. And Jokic last night, just the pristine Nikola Jokic performance on national TV against the Pelicans. So what do you make of this race at the moment?
Well, the closure between Jokic and Embiid was predictable. I feel like there's a lot of people in the gambling space who are talking about it over the last couple of weeks, notably us. But what's funny is that Embiid and Jokic going head to head in that really high profile match, game last week, and Embiid getting the better of him. I feel like if that happens closer to the All-Star break, like right on the eve of the All-Star break, then Embiid may flip Jokic because people are just going to talk about, oh my gosh, can you believe that? Like the Sixers are surging. Embiid just got the absolute better of Jokic. And at this point, Philly absolutely has to get the 1 seed for Embiid to flip him because I feel like Denver is in cruise control for the 1 seed at this point. Nobody else in the West is healthy enough and or playing good enough basketball to kind of catch Denver for the 1 seed. And just the fact that Jokic has kind of put the team on his back again and is carrying them to now a 1 seed in the Western Conference is enough for any of the doubters to kind of put away the concept of it's going to be tough for me to give him 3 in a row. So, the top 2 in this market make total sense to me. Doncic and the Mavericks are a tough handicap. I mean, we've heard a lot of buzz that they are heavily involved in some trade talks. Like they feel like they need to put a second star on this team, but the assets that they have to work with are just slim to none. And so I'm not exactly sure what they can do to change sort of the makeup of the team. And they're always going to, be in close games, just the way that they play basketball. And so, Dallas currently in the 6th seed, but tied with Phoenix in the 7th seed. Phoenix is getting healthier. Minnesota is getting healthier. They're coming up the rankings right now. The Pelicans are still in the mix when they're going to get healthier at some point. So Dallas could slide their way into the play-in mix. If Dallas is not a top 6 seed, Luka Doncic will not win the MVP. You can put that in pen. It doesn't matter if he averages 50 a game from here on in. If they are in the 7 or 8 slot, or 9 or 10 even is possibility, then people will not vote for him under the auspice of he might not even make the playoffs. Because if you're not on a playoff team, you are not the MVP of the NBA in a lot of the voters' minds. So I think ultimately the way that the board is ranked right now is fair, and I think realistically we're talking about a showdown between our 2 bigs.
Yep, I agree with that. With Doncic, I have a little rule, Drew, about MVP, where you're not allowed to win MVP if you're 2.5 games back of Sacramento, which is what
exactly
the are right now. So I just think that if you stack them up, like Doncic versus Embiid, I think maybe Doncic could win that, but Doncic versus Jokic, when on merit, on an individual level, like Jokic is beating him right now in every advanced stat, basically. Jokic is now averaging a triple-double on a 1 seed, which is ridiculous. But I do think that maybe Doncic could match Jokic on an individual output, but the fact that like Dallas aren't going to sniff Denver. Like Dallas are 8.5 games back of Denver, whereas right now Philadelphia are 32 and 17. And Denver are 35 and 16. Like that's close enough where even if Denver are the 1 seed and Philly are the 2 seed, I think Embiid has a path. But I think the past 48 hours has been really important for Jokic because that diluted that Saturday game a fair bit.
It did.
And look, Embiid still has made ground clearly this past week, and voters are going to have that in their minds, that beat down. But the fact that Jokic last night, what was it? It was 26, 18, and 15 and plus 20
Unbelievable.
on a national TV game in a win after Embiid has a catastrophic loss really against Orlando where they give up a 21-point lead. So I think this is actually the easiest award to handicap at the moment, where I think that it is simply, if it's close, then Embiid will win, because people will want to give it to Embiid. The tiebreak goes to Embiid. And people are going to remember that game on Saturday. That will be in their minds. But the most likely outcome is that it's not close and that Jokic creates distance. And so I think Jokic right now, I think he should be in the minus 150 range. I still think that he is the clear favorite. But Embiid, like if you can get Embiid at, there's still some plus 300 floating around. I think that is a bet as well. And you just go to war. Like we said this 6 weeks ago. Go to war with Jokic and Embiid and just fade Doncic, fade Tatum, fade Giannis, fade the field. I think it's going to be those two.
Yeah. One quick comment on it being close. Being close implies that Philly is the 1 seed. Because it's not close if Philly is not the 1 seed, in my opinion.
I think it matters about record. Like if they have the same record close enough, like if Denver's 5 games clear of Philly and Philly are a 2 seed and Denver's a 1 seed. But like I don't think people are going to say, Embiid, you can't win because Boston has run away and Boston are a 62-win team or something. I think so long as his record is close enough to Denver's, that if he's the 2 seed and Denver's the 1 in a weaker West, I still think he can win in that scenario.
Okay, so what I'm thinking here, there are 3 games remaining on. I'm amazed that this is true, by the way. 3 games remaining between Philly and Boston. And Boston has been a little bit of a bully in that matchup between Philly and Boston over the last couple of years. If Boston basically puts away the 1 seed by beating Philly in those contests, Embiid can put you can put a bow on. His campaign is over. You can bury it. If Philly wins those games, they get the 1 seed. And now all of a sudden, the tie breaks are, well, Jokic was averaging a triple-double, but Embiid is leading the league in scoring. And you're right. Like if they are on equal ground in terms of, seed, and, they have kind of complementary statistical profiles and leading in different categories, then, they're going to give it to Embiid by the tiebreak just because he has not gotten one and because he is such a deserving kind of presence in the mind of a lot of the voters. So, and honestly, like hopefully he stays healthy. I'm going to knock on wood here. Like Embiid, obviously not the perfect picture of health, and that kind of is sort of you have higher confidence that Jokic is going to play more of the games down the stretch than Embiid. So, we'll see. But it's going to be fun race down the stretch. Basically, anybody but Doncic, and we're in the money.
Yeah, that is the one thing. Embiid has missed 12 games. I think in this age that if he plays 65 games for the season, that's fine, particularly because Jokic has missed 7 games as well. So it's not going to be like 65 versus 80, which would be a thing. If it's 65 versus 72, like who cares? Like at that point, I think it's fine. It's just if he gets injured for a week, then he's in trouble. Looks like we've got a question here on Embiid. MVP, if Jokic keeps getting triple doubles, doesn't it make it tougher on Embiid? And if Embiid doesn't get the MVP, does the league look at possibly giving Maxey and the Sixers the 6th man as consolation? Great question from Lex Tex. I think if Jokic is a triple double on a 1 seed, that obviously creates a much higher bar for Embiid, and at that point, Embiid probably does need to get the 1 seed himself to be in it. So I do think that Maxey, I still think his price is wrong in the market. I think Maxey, if the Sixers keep winning, if they just get the 2 seed, if they finish with good vibes, and Maxey qualifies for the award by mid-March, which he's on pace to, and then there's like a month of voters being like, Maxey is a solidified candidate who's been coming off the bench for 3 months now and is thought of as a 6th man, then I think Maxey has the highest ceiling of the 6th man field. Brogdon's averaging 14 points and 3.5 assists. Like it's just not that scary of a case. Norm Powell will be heard from in the market. He had 27 points on 11 field goal attempts yesterday, but he needs the Clippers to surge. and they've got the hardest schedule remaining in the league. So I think Maxey should be plus 300 for the award and pretty much the favorite. But what's your read on sixth man?
We're in lockstep here. I think it's Maxey and Powell are the two bets, even at these prices, which are a lot shorter than they were a week ago when we talked about. When did we talk to Kurt? That day, I put some pretty decent bets down on Maxey. He was in like the 30-ish range, but even now at 5-1, I think is I agree with you. It's still too long. Russell Westbrook is a false favorite.
He's not going to win.
He's just not going to win. And honestly, like, if you want to know why, it's because the Lakers are not going to make the playoffs, and it's because he got, you don't get six-man consideration for getting demoted effectively, which is what has happened here. So, I'm struggling to see the case for him. Ultimately, people being able to stomach putting down a vote for him. Malcolm Brogdon, on the other hand, he's a good story. The Celtics, that might be a consolation if the Celtics don't get any other awards. But you're right, his stats have been very underwhelming for the case is just very tough for him. So, we need Maxey to put together some solid basketball here over the next stretch, and I'd like to see him do better than he did against Orlando. Although don't mind giving the Magic wins. That was a gift on Monday. I felt like, and they got another one tonight, which will be interesting. I'd like to see Maxey play. Continue to perform well off the bench and continue to shorten in that market. So we ride Maxey together.
Yep. I think with Maxey, like, he's going to get his stats. Like, he's Tyrese Maxey. He's going to play close to 30 minutes a game. He's going to probably off the bench, he's going to average like 17 and 4, which with his already banked stats, he's going to end the season averaging like 19 points efficiently, 4 assists on a team that's going to be a 2 or a 3 seed. So I think that on merit, he's going to have the best case. It's just a matter of whether he qualifies in time and is thought of as a candidate properly, which I think he will. I think he's probably slightly shorter than even money to qualify by, say, like March 20, to give him 3 weeks at least in that space. And then if he's qualified by then, I think, again, he's slightly shorter than even money to win the award. So I think he should be plus 250 type of range, and he's bigger than that everywhere. So I think it's a good bet. All right, Coach of the Year quickly. To me, this is the market that's the most difficult to figure out. I don't think that there is a super strong case for anyone, particularly at the moment. I think if the vote was held today, I think Mike Brown would win because he's got Sacramento in the 3 seed, and he's favorite on points bet at plus 225, followed by Joe Mazzulla at plus 240, who's been the favorite for most of the season. Michael Malone at plus 300, which I don't like. I think Jokic just gets too much of the credit there. Taylor Jenkins 5-1, which again, Memphis are kind of just meh at the moment. And then Josh Vaughn at plus 600, which I think might be the best bet on the board at the moment because they've been able to tread water a bit without Durant. But what's your breakdown of this market?
Yeah, so my only preseason bet in the Coach of the Year market was Mike Brown. And when I made that bet, I literally thought the Kings need to get a top 6 seed in the West, qualify unconditionally for the playoff field. It would snap the longest streak in professional sports of not being in the playoffs. And that would be enough for Mike Brown to be kind of the narrative winner for this award. I bet him at 50-1. I'm still excited about that play, but I am now very, very much head on a swivel defense mode now that he's the favorite, because I do look at the standings. The Kings have a razor thin margin from being on the outside of the playoff looking in. And yeah, again, if you're in the play-in, they vote, then they do the play-in, and then we know what our field looks like. That legitimately hurts any award contender on a 7 or an 8 because you feel embarrassed as a voter, as I'm guessing. You feel embarrassed as a voter if you give some team, some coach, some player credit, and then they ultimately don't make the playoffs. You feel like you've made a bad vote. And so you protect yourself by not voting for the 7 or 8 very high, which means we're still in the space where the Kings need to get in cleanly to be considered for this award. Mazzulla, Malone, Jenkins, Vaughn, all very, very viable candidates. And I'm assuming that if the Kings work their way out of the mix, then it's literally going to be like among those guys who finishes with the best record. I wouldn't sleep on Doc Rivers, honestly. I mean, if we're right and the Sixers do surge, and some of the credit for they won 8 games in the 12 games Embiid missed. They've done well to navigate some really tough injuries. They missed Maxey for a huge portion of the season. Harden's been in and out, and Doc Rivers actually they took a very, very poor start from the Sixers team, and now he's got them in contention still for a 1 seed and an Atlantic title. Like, this has been a pretty impressive job by him, and I think his price is a little bit on the long side. So I think if Kings get in cleanly, particularly if they get, if they finish in the top 4, if they have a home playoff series, my goodness gracious, he's going to have an overwhelmingly positive narrative to support his case for Mike Brown. But in the absence of that, then I think it probably goes to, with one of the 2 1 seed coaches, Missoula, Malone, maybe Jenkins, and maybe Doc Rivers. I think Jacques Vaughn has the longest, the toughest case to make, just because there's a little bit of a mental bias against rewarding any of the Nets, I think, from just sort of the way that their season is gone. I don't know that people are going to be dying to, give the Nets hardware this year from a voter's perspective, but that's just a guess.
I think it actually might go the other way on Vaughn, where he was winning most of the mid-season articles and he was getting the credit for kind of reversing around the stench around the Nets, and it seemed like they were headed for catastrophe. So I think he has also a lower bar to clear, and that if they get the 2 seed, maybe even the 3 seed, I think that he's going to get credit. With Doc, I agree that on merit he should be closer to certainly Malone and Jenkins, but there's like this Mike McCarthy type of stench on Doc Rivers. I don't give him any credit, which I don't necessarily agree with. But yeah, I think he's a viable candidate. The only long shot, just quickly before we talk about the Atlantic Division, Mark Daigneault, who's coaching the Oklahoma City Thunder, which not everyone might realize. But I think people even know the coach OKC is.
Did you say Mark Daigneault? Never heard of him.
Yeah,
I'm being sarcastic. I know who Daigneault is.
He's if OKC got a 6th seed, then I think he would be live. But again, the thing is to remember about this award is that it goes to top 3 seeds. It just doesn't go to the overachieving 6 or 7 seed. Typically, it always goes higher up the board. So the thing is like people forget that last year the Cavs had a win total of 26.5 and went like 20 games over it or whatever. It's ridiculous that Bickerstaff didn't get more credit last year, but the season is so long that people just forget the teams weren't supposed to be good. So I think the Kings probably need a top 4 seed, which is very much in play. And if they win the Pacific Division, which we'll get to, then Mike Brown is very live. All right, let's do a quick promo, then get into some more of these futures markets. Every season is draft season, Drew. So get your RotoWorld Draft Guide bundle today and dominate your football, baseball, and basketball drafts packed with profiles, rankings, projections. Order today and get all 3 RotoWorld Draft Guides for the price of 2. Plus use promo code BUNDLE5 and save an extra $5 at checkout. All right, let's talk about the Atlantic Division, which is very closely tied to MTP. Right now, the Celtics are minus 700, which wouldn't touch. The 76ers are plus 450. The Nets are 16-1. And then the Raptors and Knicks, you can write your own ticket on. What's your read on this market?
I think the Sixers are a play. I am not. I know you kind of said it in the last segment, and I would push back a little bit that the Nets could get the 2 seed. I think we have seen the best of the Nets in the regular season, largely because their schedule through December and January was very, very, very rest advantageous. And yes, we don't really know when we're going to see Kevin Durant back. He's kind of out there buzzing. He wants to play in the All-Star game at the end of February. But that seems like a long shot, which means we may not see Kevin Durant again until March. If you go through another month of your schedule here, and by the way, your schedule is getting tougher. You have some very challenging opponents left. I'm ready to pretty much write off the Nets from being a contender in the Atlantic. So that kind of just leaves can the Sixers do enough to catch the Celtics? And you look at who they have remaining on their schedule. There are not a lot of tanking teams on here. They only have one more game against the Rockets, one more game against the Spurs, one against the Hornets. and one final game against the Magic tonight, which I'm sure Sixers will find a way to lose because that's just who the Magic are. They beat the good teams, but they don't have as many games against the kind of bottom feeders as you would hope coming down the home stretch. They do have 3 more head-to-heads, as we mentioned, against the Celtics. So the Atlantic is far, far, far from decided because the gap that exists now can be closed with a couple of head-to-head wins here. And Celtics surely have looked a little gassed. What was the last time out? They very lucky to beat the Lakers. Very lucky. The below average Lakers, not a great result from them. Can't seem to kind of put together winning basketball right now just because they have fired so many of their bullets early in this season. So for me, at least, Celtics, a little bit of exhaustion, a little bit of trending down as far as team strength, team rating goes. Sixers, on the other hand, trending up. I think if you can get your head-to-head wins against that team coming down the stretch here, then you can close that gap. And this should be more like a 60-40 market in favor of the Celtics as opposed to what we're looking at now, which is like closer to 80-20, which feels not correct. This is Sixers or pass for the Atlantic. And, we talked about this, I think last week. There were some exotic markets you could get in terms of Sixers get the 1 seed, Sixers win the Atlantic, that were all worth taking a little bit of a stab on. And at these prices, like plus 450, I think that's still the case.
Yeah, the problem is like they're 3 games back at Boston, and Boston's up 1-0 in the head-to-head. And I'd like the Sixers a lot more if they didn't have the second hardest remaining schedule in the NBA, which is
tough,
which kills you. And then also they've played 5 more home games than road games so far, which is also another thing. So yeah. I would definitely like the Six. I think the Sixers, it's probably better to bet them to win the East. Which I think they have the upside to do, and they could do from a 2 seed. I just think that with the schedule, they're going to be hard pressed, but definitely one to monitor night to night because they absolutely have the upside to catch Boston. When Harden and Embiid are on the floor, they have like a historic offense, and they are rounding into form. Let's talk about the Pacific Division, which is the most wide open. The Kings, the favorite on points at plus 185. The Warriors are plus 250. The Clippers plus 300 after overturning a massive deficit last night against Chicago. The Suns are plus 330. And then the Lakers are the long shot at 18-1. Now, I think there are 2 bets to make in this market. And to me, it's the Warriors at plus 250 and the Suns at plus 330. I bet both these teams recently at prices around these marks. I would be fading the Kings at plus 185. Can't get involved. Their lead has shrunk now. And then the Clippers, who I think, just all things being equal from a schedule perspective, I think would be in position to surge a little. I think they're one of the teams that's most likely to make a trade, probably for a point guard type, maybe Mike Conley, someone, Kyle Lowry, someone of that nature. But they have the hardest remaining schedule in the league, and they basically forfeit back to back. What do you like in this market?
I'm going to have the least satisfying answer of all, which is I make this almost even across these 3 teams. I even actually give the Suns a meaningful chance here. I'm almost inclined to get involved with the Suns price just because it's the biggest. There is so little margin between these 4 at the top in terms of the way I rate these teams that it does come down to sort of the intangibles, like you mentioned, strength of schedule, and just how do you treat your challenging back-to-back spots. That surely docks the Clippers. In fact, I would probably flip the Clippers and Suns prices just because of that fact alone. Just too many games punted. And then, Kings and Warriors, the Warriors, I'm willing to throw out a lot of the season-long data we've gotten from them to this point, because so much of the early part of their season was really trying to balance that edge of developing the young future core with kind of keeping staying competitive, keeping their standing in the Western Conference, and that was a very tough ask, and they did not succeed. They did not, we're not really able to develop any of their young pieces, and honestly, like, they had to move Poole off the bench into the starting lineup because he was so ineffective in that role with those guys. And they do seem to at least now have a little bit more of a vision of who they want to be on a night-by-night basis, and they are taking the regular season from here in at least the next month and change a little bit more seriously. So I think the Warriors are worth a look at plus 250. My fair price for Warriors, by the way, is plus 195. So a little bit of an edge there for me. I'm looking at a decent edge on the Suns of plus 330 as well. My fair price for them, plus 275. So those are the two numbers that stand out to me. And then I would say after that, the Kings, if they ultimately win, that would be a great story, but I'm not holding my breath. And the Clippers just, too many games punted here. But this is a tough one. Really is. Do you have a read on the Suns and what's going on with Booker, and if they can get anything back from Jay Crowder or DeAndre Ayton? He's apparently on the trade block.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to happen in this market the past few days is that it's become clear that Phoenix's new owner is going to have control of decision making before the trade deadline, and Sava's not going to have to sign off on trades, which would have made it really difficult. So I think that they are maybe the team in the league that's most likely to make a move just because of the Crowder piece. Like, Crowder's not going to be on the Suns through the deadline. They're going to get something back. I think they will make an upgrade. And like they cratered completely, and now they've turned the corner a little bit. Chris Paul is playing much, much better than he was 2 months ago. Booker,
like a different player.
Yep. Booker looks like he'll be back. There's still no concrete timeline, but he should be back in the next couple of weeks. At worst, you would think post the All-Star break. And I think the way to think about this market is when it's so flat and you've got four contenders, you don't want high floor, low ceiling, because someone is going to emerge. You want high ceiling. And Warriors and the Suns have the two highest ceilings, because the Clippers, their ceiling is just capped by the schedule and the fact that they rest their guys so much. And the Kings ceiling is capped by the fact that they're just not as good. So I think you've got it right. I think you go to war with the Warriors and the Suns, back both at the current prices, and fade load management and fade the beam and prosper. All right. Before we get into tonight's NBA games, just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in the PGA Tour, as well as in the Premier League and college basketball. All right, Drew, what are you looking at on the slate tonight in the association?
Okay, it's a good one. Last night, and honestly, like, for what it's worth, I know we change the month, and every time the calendar changes, you kind of do your numbers and you're like, how'd the month go? January, I had put together some sustained performance in the NBA, which just feels unusual, like a little bit surprised here. Like I won in the NBA, which was not the case to this point in the season. So I'm pretty excited with how things are turning in my favor here. And I see advantages in a number of spots tonight. So it's going to be, a pretty pretty strong card for me. Utah is the one that stands out the most clearly. Toronto, not only dealing with a lot of buzz about who's ultimately going to be on this team going forward, but they are now at a rest disadvantage at altitude. That's awful spot for Toronto. Utah only laying 3 looks like a fair play to me. We didn't get into Rookie of the Year betting, but I was just curious of if there was somebody besides Paolo in the Rookie of the Year market, who would it be? And I was going through my advanced numbers. Now, he doesn't have a case at all statistically, but Walker Kessler is clearly the second best rookie of this class. I can't believe it. Like, I looked at my numbers and I was like, hey, I figured Mathurin, maybe Ivy. I had no idea who was going to pop as the second best. It is clearly Walker Kessler. He is a very good player, and his defense is like top 15 in the league among all players, let alone rookies. Like, clearly the best defensive rookie. So kind of excited to see what emerges from this Utah team. But they are in a beautiful spot against Toronto. Philly, I think, gets their revenge against the mighty Magic. Obviously, it's a 9-point spread. A lot of good needs to happen here, but I don't expect the Magic to, I'm not a believer in the Magic tonight. And then similarly, I think the Brooklyn Nets are in an absolutely atrocious spot here against Boston. Boston, I think, takes care of business as well. So it's going to be a chalky night for me, but I laid it with the homies, Utah, Boston, and Philly.
I like it. I think Embiid is questionable for that game against the Magic. He is questionable every single game, so maybe don't read too much into it. He did he really tailed off in the second half of that Magic game on Monday night. But you would think from a motivation perspective and everything after they coughed up that 21-point lead that they would be switched on tonight. That game, which you did a betcast on, so I was watching it closely. I don't think James Harden drove to the hoop once until about halfway through the fourth quarter when the game started to get out of hand. He was just in total cruise control mode. I think that they will be a bit more engaged in the second half tonight in the way that they weren't against the Magic. But the Magic, Franz Wagner is up to like plus 3.8 EPM. He's a legit player. That's like all-star type of rating. I backed some Magic at close to 20-1 to make the play-in. They're only 3.5 games back. I think
to make the play-in was 20-1.
Yeah.
Oh, like Jay, what a bet!
Yeah,
God, that's a good one.
Paolo had a little bit of a slump, but he was amazing against Philly on Monday night. He was the best player on the floor for stretches. They've got the guard depth isn't great, but at least now that they have Fultz and Suggs and Anthony and these type of guys, but they at least have NBA players, whereas they didn't have NBA players in those spots previously. So I think the Magic are a little frisky, and defensively they got a ton of upside. So I think certainly with the way that Toronto might sell off, Chicago is kind of a mess. I'm not scared of the Wizards. The Pacers are in a bit of free fall. They should turn it around a bit when Halliburton comes back. But yeah, the Magic, I would think that fair there cannot be bigger than 10-1, absolute max. They're 3.5 back and playing well.
Yeah. Okay, well, after the Magic get their brains beaten in tonight, I will find some Magic to make the plan and ride that with you as well, because I got a bunch of Magic to win the Southeast in my pocket. I don't think that realistically that has a chance the way that the Miami Heat have been playing lately. If they're winning games like they won last night, like that Heat are going to cruise to the Southeast title. But the Magic, as far as ratings go, I have marginal difference right now between Atlanta and Orlando, and I have meaningful space between Orlando and Washington, space between Orlando and Charlotte. I know I'm bullish on the Magic in general, like I get it, but that team is a lot better than the market realizes. I think they're definitely kind of in the league average, if not a little bit better than league average the way they're playing right now. So love that look to make the play-in, because so basically they could top 10 seed in the East 20-1. That seems crazy. That's a really bad number. And I know I'm bullish on Magic, but God, that's a bad number.
Yeah, I think I gobbled up most of the 20-1, so I think 15-1. But what the play is, right. The play is, here's what we do: we take Magic play-in, we parlay it into Marseille to win Ligue 1 at 450-1, and then we buy a club in Ligue 1 next year, and we take down PSG ourselves for a second consecutive year.
All right, let me look at the standings and figure out what part of France I want. I like south of France. I prefer south of France. Southeast. Okay, Southeast. I don't mind Southwest though. There's some beautiful part of the country there. The Canal de Midi, that whole region there. It's just absolutely beautiful. So we'll find a good squad to get on after Marseille cashes. That bringing that full circle. It's going to be a fun bet to ride now.
It's going to be fun. All right,
we got to wait till June though. I didn't know that Ligue 1 went until June 4th.
Yeah, well, the whole season's pushed back because of the World Cup. But that's the edge that's going to get us home. Nothing like cheering against PSG, reprehensible little team they've got there. It's good to kill off the Giants. Let's go Marseille.
Take all that Orlando. Messi golden ball money, roll it right into fading PSG. I like it. This is good complimentary handicapping.
Yeah, let's go Marseille. Let's go Orlando Magic, and let's get it done. All right. Don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, au revoir.